friends. Brian here from Guitars and Cigars in the Katana Tone Lab. Hopefully, everybody's having a marvelous Friday. Survived another week. So, we have been talking about the Chillcat guitars, the vintage Kentucky that I've had for a couple of months now. And I just recently picked up one of the limited Les Paul customs. And I cannot highly recommend them any more than I already have. Outstanding, outstanding, outstanding. They're not outstanding budget guitars, they're just outstanding guitars, period. They play well above their price point. They sound well above their price point. And to be honest with you, a lot of the amenities are above its price point. Bone nut, stainless steel frets, wiring shielding. Lots of things make these guitars certainly better by far than other brands that say that they are fiscally minded. And to be honest with you, these guitars exceed higher end guitars. I own an Epiphone Les Paul Custom, an Access Alex Lifeson edition. And both of these Chillcat guitars are better in some ways. The Epiphone is better in other ways. But overall, these exceed the Epiphone guitar. And they're a third or the quarter of the money. So it's kind of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. So what I've done is I don't have a comparable Epiphone Les Paul completely that go with my vintage and my Les Paul custom. So what I've done is I've done research. I've taken all the specs and I've taken all the information from one, the Chillcat, and found a comparable Les Paul custom that's an Epiphone that you can purchase today. And the two guitars we're talking about are the Chillcat Vintage Standard Kentucky Sunset versus, I'm going to say, the Epiphone 1960 Les Paul reissue. Very similar guitars, specs, looks, overall. If you were looking at them both, holding them both, you close your eyes, you would not really be able to tell a huge difference that way. So what I've done is I've compiled the list. Now we're going to go over the list. So I've compiled a list of things that you or I would go into a guitar store and look at that would make a difference on what I would purchase. So, as I said, the winner price-wise, obviously, is the Chillcat. The body and neck wood also goes to Chillcat. Chillcat comes with a roasted maple body and neck. Clearly not enough coffee. I meant roasted mahogany. Now, where that really plays into why that's important is overall stability of the guitar itself. Humidity fluctuates the wood. Roasted mahogany is a much more stable wood because of the roasting process. So it's less susceptible to having issues and fluctuation due to humidity and a few other things that can change how the wood reacts overall. So, and also longevity. Roasted mahogany is proven to be a stabler wood for longevity as well. So Chillcat wins that one. So the top, what we got here, the Epiphone uses a genuine carved maple top with a AAA flame veneer. So basically what you're going to get in comparison to what you see on the Chillcat, which is really nice, is you're going to see more of that authentic wood grain look to it. So the Epiphone does win that category. So the neck joint, which is where the neck goes into the guitar, Epiphone wins that one as it has a long tenon joint is what it's called. So not that this is exact, but the gist of it is this neck goes to, we'll say here on the Chillcat. where the Epiphone would go all the way basically through the body, which overall gives you a little bit more stable neck. Huge difference in playability? Not really. I've played on all kinds of amalgamations of neck joints. I mean, some of them back in the day, they were bolt-on. I've had some bolt-on Les Pauls, Gibson Les Pauls. So I don't feel a huge difference in playability, but that's a personal preference as well. So the scale length, which is going to be from here to here, is the same on both. So that's a tie. They're both 24.75, which is your standard Gibson Les Paul scale length. If you own a Strat, any Strat style guitar, basically, that scale length is a little bit different. I think it's a tiny bit shorter, if I remember. And then the fingerboard is also a tie. They both come with a rosewood style fingerboard. So that's a tie. So frets. That's where the Chillcat exceeds, I think, all Epiphones. I don't know if any Epiphones come with stainless steel frets. Maybe some of the higher. My Alex Lifeson doesn't have stainless steel frets. All Chillcat guitars come with stainless steel frets. Now, where does that really play into why it's an important thing? Stainless steel lasts a lot longer. They don't wear as quickly as regular frets. Some people will argue that the longer you own a regular Les Paul or a guitar that does not have stainless steel frets, it breaks in a little bit. That may be true, but it also brings down the playability because as you wear down your frets, you get less response when you're doing something with vibrato. That's not going to happen as you wear down your frets. You get less and less of that. So the stainless steel frets is a big, big improvement. The nut. This is another area where Chillcat exceeds certainly the Epiphone line guitars. All their guitars come with a bone nut. A bone nut gives you more stability. You don't have to run a lot of graphite in it and what have you. The overall quality versus plastic is much, much better. So Chillcat wins in that category. So the tuners are going to be... I'm going to give it to Epiphone just a smidge, only because they're actually Grover tuners. Or they're Schaller tuners. This guitar here comes with Grover style tuners, which, to be honest with you, my Epiphone has Grovers on it, and I can't tell the difference. If I close my eyes and I'm playing with it, I can't. They work exactly the same. So technically, it would be a tie as far as usability, but the Epiphone gets it just a smidge because it is name brand. So the bridge, it's going to be basically a tie. The Nashville Tune-O-Matic and the ABR1 being on the Gibson, the Nashville being on this, they're essentially the same style bridge. They've got your intonation slots here, and you turn it with a screwdriver up and down to get your intonation on your neck correct. And they're both equally as user-friendly, and the quality is basically the same. So that's a tie. All right, so the tailpiece goes to Epiphone. It's a lightweight aluminum tailpiece, which is more in line with vintage guitars. And it kind of falls in line with that brand mentality. If you're looking for strictly brand versus playability, that may make a difference to somebody. But overall, I don't see any difference. I've owned Gibsons that have had the same style tailpiece, and you really can't tell the difference, at least in my opinion. Unless you're doing where you're doing your wrap, that's where the tailpiece will come into play. If you're not wrapping your strings over, it doesn't make a difference. So this is where I might get some pushback from some people. The pickups. I think the Chillcat pickups are a little bit better. I don't think they get that really whiny, tinny sound when you're playing clean. And when you're playing something that's boosted or distorted, they don't get muddy at all. Where I've seen it happen myself with Gibsons, and I've read reviews where, yes, that does happen. Now, if you're not paying attention and you're doing stuff with your amp, it doesn't make a difference what you're using for pickups. It's either going to sound like shit or it's going to sound good because of what your amp settings are. But if you take all of that out of it, plug it into just a completely clean amp, I think the Chillcat's a little bit better. It's a little bit warmer and seems to be a little bit more versatile. The Gibson custom buckers absolutely nail that vintage PAF tone, but the Chillcat ceramic pickups seem to handle a wider variety of styles of music. That's really what it comes down to. I read a little bit directly from Gibson and what I've seen with the Chillcat. So the electronics on paper, if you were to read the two, what this comes with and what that comes with, on paper, the Epiphone is superior because it has CTS pots, Bumblebee capacitors, and switchcraft hardware. Again, that's part of the I need something that is name brand mentality, as the potentiometers in this, the switch in this, and the overall electronics. I opened up the cavity, everything looks marvelous. So does one versus the other make you buy an Epiphone versus the Chillcat? I don't think so. I don't get any crackle. I don't get any distortion. They're nice and smooth, but they're not loose. You get some that, oh, you breathe on it and it will change on you. That isn't the case with this at all. So on paper, Epiphone, in practicality, I think it's tied. So the shielding that I found in here versus the Epiphone is actually better on the Chillcat. I'll read it exactly here. The Chillcat includes shielding from the factory that helps reduce unwanted electronic noise, which is something that the Epiphone just completely glanced over. Doesn't even seem like they've addressed the possibility of getting interference. Like I've been talking about, I run 3 32-inch monitors. I've got 2 cameras. I've got 3 other computers that run in the area. So there's lots of interference. And I get less with this than I do with my Epiphone Les Paul Custom. So shielding definitely goes to Chillcat, which is one of those other attentions to details that makes these guitars absolutely amazing. Hardware preference. Chrome versus on my Access Les Paul, it's gold. Some people like satin. Some people like it really shiny. Some people like it black. Anodized green, I've seen. So that's all a personal preference thing. The one big thing is, in particular, and I believe it comes with the 60s reissue as well, you get a case. Cases aren't a huge thing for me, as I own a pile of them. I don't really need more. I don't play live, so I'm not hauling these things in and out. And even if I wanted to or had to, I've got enough cases where I can swap things around. So it's not a big thing for me. But that is a thing for a lot of people. And with the Gibson or the Epiphone, you get a case with it. So obviously that goes to Epiphone. So the finish on both guitars is exceptional. I didn't find any blemishes on this. I haven't found any blemishes on my limited Les Paul Custom that I just picked up by Chillcat. And I didn't find any blemishes on my Access Les Paul Custom either. So that's going to be a tie. Weight. This is in the 9-pound range. I think my limited Les Paul might be a little bit heavier. Could be just that I'm getting old and whatever. And the Epiphone is, I think, 9.4 pounds versus 9. So I'm going to call that a tie. It's negotiable. It's not like this weighs 8 pounds and the Epiphone weighs 13 pounds. I had a Les Paul Custom back in the day in the mid 80s that literally was 12 or 13 pounds. That was like playing a boat anchor. All right, so the last two things we're going to talk about is resale value and then customer service. The resale value obviously is going to go to the Epiphone. It's a vintage brand, it's been around for a long time, and collectors obviously are going to go towards an Epiphone versus a Chillcat. But people who play want quality instruments and they're keeping finances in mind, this will sell faster than that. If you're holding out for top dollar on your Epiphone, you're going to wait a while. If you're going to do for whatever reason you stop playing and then start selling your guitars, your Chillcat will sell quickly because it's A, going to be on the lower end price wise, and B, for the value, this is a much better guitar overall. So resale value technically will go to the Epiphone. Customer service is completely the opposite. I've dealt with Gibson and Epiphone for issues, and they're horrible. I don't know what they're like today because I haven't had a problem where I've had to talk to them since buying this guitar. But I had issues over the years. I've owned SGs, I've owned an ES335, I had a couple of Firebirds, I've had numerous Les Pauls, and some of them I've had issues with. I've gone back to where I purchased them, and they're like, "Oh no, sorry, you got to deal with Gibson," and I'm like, "Ugh." And they're horrible. You got to go through 8 people before you get someone who's going to make the wrong decision. Chillcat, on the other hand, I cannot talk about any better. I ordered the guitar. I had an acknowledgement within 24 hours. The guitar was here in a week. I ordered my second guitar. Same thing. Acknowledgement within a day, and it took a week and a day. And that's part of it because it fell along the way that the week was falling, and it wasn't Chillcat's issue, it was on the shipping company's issue, which is UPS. And let me tell you, they're a bunch of clowns. I have a covered porch in my house. They continue to leave this stuff up against my garage. For an extra 15 steps, you can make sure that anything they're delivering is safe underneath my great big huge covered porch. Sorry, I digress. We're not talking about that. So, like I said, resale goes to the Epiphone, and that's because of the name. Customer service definitely goes to Chillcat. One of the best customer service companies I've ever dealt with. So I'm going to put a comparison chart up. And some of it's a tie. Some of it Epiphone wins. But a majority of it, Chillcat wins. And the stuff that Chillcat wins on is the stuff that matters to me and you as players. Playability, sound, stainless steel frets, bone nut, shielded electronics. Playability and sound is better. Is the Epiphone a piece of garbage compared? Not in any way, shape, or form. The model I have in particular, let me grab it. So this is my Alex Lifeson Epiphone Les Paul Custom. The 3 main differences between this guitar and that guitar is A, obviously it's got a Floyd. B, coil splitting. So I can take these, split them into single coil pickups. Huge versatility thing. And then it will also go in and out of phase. So when I'm in the middle position and I hit this, it flips the polarity of the humbuckers. And where that matters is, think of Brian May's tone in Bohemian Rhapsody solo. That really that whiny sound is because he plays out of phase. So the versatility on this guitar is exceptional. Is it exceptional enough for me to have paid almost 4 times the amount of money as that guitar? No. I think it makes more sense to pick up 2 of these guitars and you're still half the money of this. So you could have, like I have my vintage and I now have my Les Paul Custom. The Custom's going to be in D. I'm going to set it to D standard and it's going to live in it. The vintage will stay in 440. Gives me the versatility. Now, say I wanted to have a third guitar. Well, Chillcat also offers guitars that have P90s in it. So that'll give you that single coil type of sound that you're looking for. So if you bought 3 guitars, you're still less than the price of 1. So, I mean, the math or whatever, however you want to look at it, Chillcat is by far the superior value. And I've just shown you where it excels over the higher name, the bigger name brands for playability and sound and overall quality. So you can make a decision on how you want to, completely up to you. Obviously, you're just, listening to what I'm talking about. You can take me at my word or you can think I'm full of shit. But I've been playing for 50 years. Chances are I've learned a few things. And I just showed you the difference. It's not even my opinion on most of it. It is, you see the physical difference. You can read about the physical difference. So you can make a decision that way. So, all right, Brian here from the Guitars and Cigars and the Katana Tone Lab. This has been another edition of our Proof Over Price, where we're talking about fiscally minded gear that far exceeds its price point and certainly compete or possibly exceed higher end, bigger money equipment. So, all right, we appreciate you checking out all our stuff. We are on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, on X. If you really like what we're doing here, you're getting some information out of the Katana stuff I do, the guitar stuff we're doing here. I'm doing different stuff with cigars. By all means, like and comment. If you really like what we're doing, you think that you're getting information that you're able to use, it's practical. Basically, you're learning something you didn't know 5 minutes ago, then by all means, please subscribe to both our channels on YouTube, which is Guitars and Cigars and the Katana Tone Lab. So, all right, my friends, I've pontificated enough. I hope you guys get some interesting information out of this, and smoke long, play loud, live well.